My inconsiderate friends agreed that I should not host our Halloween party, and now they are mad for assuming I am inviting them to mine. And I want to tell you about the group chat where the deciding happened, because the group chat was where I learned what my friend group had been operating on for years. There were 6 of us. We had been doing a Halloween party together every October for 9 years. The hosting had rotated. I had hosted 3 of the 9. The last time I had hosted was 4 years ago. I was the only one in our group who lived in the city while the others had moved to the suburbs in their late 20s. 3 weeks ago, Cassidy started a group chat about hosting this year's party. Cassidy said, "It is your turn." Cassidy was tagging me. I said, "Sure." I said, "Please remember my apartment is smaller than yours, so it will be a tighter party." Cassidy said, "That is fine." The other 4 chimed in. The 5th was Hadley. Hadley did not respond. 2 days later, Cassidy started a separate group chat that did not include me. I know because Hadley screenshotted the chat and sent it to me. Hadley had been my actual friend in the group for 9 years, and the others had been my friends through Hadley. The chat said the following. Cassidy said, "Honestly, her apartment is too small, and last time was uncomfortable." Cassidy said, "I think we should let her host on paper, and then someone else actually hosts." Megan said, "Yes, I was thinking the same." Emily said, "Maybe we can convince her to skip this year." Cassidy said, "Let's just say her apartment is not going to work for the size we are doing this year." The 11 messages organized a plan. The plan was that Cassidy would tell me my apartment was too small and offer to take over hosting. The plan was for the party to happen at Cassidy's house. The plan was to invite me as a guest, but to make sure I knew it was Cassidy's party. Cassidy texted me the next morning. Cassidy said, "Hey, so I have been thinking about the space situation. Cassidy said your apartment is amazing, but I think for the size we are doing this year it might be tight." Cassidy said, "I am happy to host." Cassidy said, "You can just come and bring a dish." I said, "Sure, that works." I said, "Thanks for taking over." I had Hadley's screenshots in another chat. I sat with what I knew. I sent a separate group text to 7 other friends. The 7 friends were people I had been wanting to spend more time with for a while. The text said, "Hey, I am hosting a Halloween party at my place this year." The text said it will be small and intimate. All 7 said yes. I planned the party. I tagged the 7 on Instagram in a post that did not show up on the feed of the original Halloween group, or so I thought. 2 days before my party, Cassidy texted me. Cassidy said, "I see you tagged people in something." Cassidy said, "Is there another party?" I said yes. I said I am hosting a small thing at my place. Cassidy said, "I thought we agreed I was hosting." I said we did. I said I am hosting a different party. Cassidy said, "Are we invited?" I said no. I said, "As you noted, my apartment is too small for a larger group." I said, "I would love to see you at your party, which is happening on the same night." I said, "Please enjoy." The other group chat exploded. Hadley sent me screenshots. Cassidy could not believe I was being so petty. Megan said, "This is so passive-aggressive." I wrote a single message to the original Halloween chat. The message said, "I have been a member of this group for 9 years." The message said, "3 weeks ago, you all collectively decided in a separate chat that I was not going to host because my apartment was too small." The message said, "You decided to take the hosting from me without telling me." The message said, "Someone in this group sent me the screenshots." The message said, "I have decided to host my own party with people who actually want to come to my apartment." The message said, "Please do not contact me about this further." The party happened. My party was wonderful. Hadley left the original group 2 days later and joined mine. The other 4 have not spoken to me. The friend group that had functioned for 9 years had been functioning on a specific assumption, which was that I was the smaller apartment friend who would accept the small apartment role. The role had become the friendship. The foundation was bad. I am glad it is gone. Things have happened since then, and I need to tell you about them. It is now mid-October. 1 full year has passed since the fallout. I am planning my 2nd annual Halloween party with my new group, which is 6 people including Hadley. Last year, the party was something I built out of hurt. This year, it is something I am building out of want. I made a private group chat for the 6 of us. The responses came in fast. Everyone was excited. Hadley sent a voice note that was just her screaming for 4 seconds. Nobody was managing anything. Nobody was deciding behind the scenes. We were just planning a party together, and it felt good. I was sitting on my couch that night going through decoration ideas on my phone when a text came through from a number I had not heard from in almost a year. It was Jordan. Jordan said, "Hey, I have been thinking about everything that happened. I think we all handled it badly. Can we talk?" I read it twice. I felt a pull. I am not going to pretend I did not. Jordan had always been the quietest one in the old group. Jordan was the one who asked if I needed anything when the hosting was first discussed. She had agreed with the plan in the chat, but she had not driven it. I picked my phone back up and I started typing. I got 3 words in and then I stopped because another text came through. This one was from Hadley. Hadley said, "Jordan texted me too. She asked if I thought you would be open to talking. I told her I did not know, but I want you to know something. Jordan is still in the group chat with Cassidy. Cassidy told Jordan to reach out to you." I felt something shift in my chest. I asked Hadley what she meant. Hadley sent me a screenshot. The screenshot was from the old group chat, the one Cassidy had created a year ago to plan around me. They were still using it. The screenshot showed a message from Cassidy to Jordan, Megan, and Emily. The message said, "Just feel her out. See if she is doing another party. If she is, find out who is invited." The timestamp was from earlier that same day. Cassidy had sent that message hours before Jordan texted me. I read Jordan's text again. I put them side by side in my head. Jordan's message sounded like someone reaching out on her own, but it was not on her own. It was Cassidy. The words were different. The tone was softer, but the structure was exactly the same. Someone else deciding what should happen to me without telling me. I did not respond to Jordan. I thought about how Cassidy knew that Jordan was the right person to send because Jordan was the quiet one, the one I would be most likely to believe. That was not an accident. That was a choice. Cassidy chose Jordan the way you choose a tool for a job. I opened my chat with Hadley. I typed, "Thank you for telling me. I am not going to respond to Jordan. I do not want to be managed anymore." Hadley responded fast. She said, "Good. Also, your party is going to be amazing this year." 3 days went by. I was at work on a Wednesday afternoon when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made me stop chewing. Cassidy. I had not heard from Cassidy in 11 months. I opened the message. It was 4 full paragraphs. The kind of message that someone clearly wrote and rewrote and probably read out loud to themselves before hitting send. She said she had been reflecting on everything that happened last year. later, she said she had taken time to really think about her part in it. She said she knew she had handled the hosting situation poorly. She said she should have talked to me directly instead of going behind my back. She said she was sorry. She said she valued the 9 years of friendship we had built together. The fourth paragraph said she would love to come to my party this year as a guest. No strings attached, no expectations. She said, I just want to show up and be your friend again. I miss you. I read the message 3 times. Something inside me went soft when I read it. I thought about the 9 years. I thought about 5 years ago when I had the flu and could not get out of bed for 3 days, and Cassidy showed up at my apartment with soup. I thought about when I moved into my current apartment, the same apartment that was apparently too small for a party, and Cassidy was the one who helped me carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken. She stayed until midnight. She helped me hang my curtains. She said, this place is going to be perfect. I started typing. I typed, I miss you too. 3 words. I sat there with my thumb over the send button. I did not send it. Something held me back. I closed the app and I called Hadley. I read the message out loud. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. The kind of silence where someone already knows what they need to say. Hadley said, I need to show you something. I was not going to because I thought Cassidy was done, but she is not done. Hadley sent me a screenshot. It was from the old group chat. The timestamp was from 30 minutes before Cassidy had sent me that long apology. Cassidy's message said, I am going to send her an apology. If she invites me, I will get us all in. Once we are there, we can show her we are still her people. She will fold. She always does. She will fold. She always does. That was how Cassidy saw me. Not as a friend she missed, as someone who folds, as someone who always folds. The apology was not an apology. It was a strategy. The 4 paragraphs about valuing our friendship were not real. They were the setup. The no strings attached was the biggest string of all because the string was invisible and it led straight back to that group chat. The softness I had felt reading her message hardened into something clear and still. Not anger, something quieter than anger, something more like understanding. I went back to my text thread with Cassidy. I looked at the 3 words I had typed. I miss you too. I selected them. I deleted them. I closed the chat. I walked into my apartment that evening and turned on the lights, and there were my decorations. The ones I had been putting together for 3 weekends. I sat on my couch and I looked at all of it, and I realized I was not angry. I was sad. The sadness was because the Cassidy I thought I had never existed. The friend who brought me soup when I was sick was real. The friend who helped me move and stayed until midnight was real. But that same friend also sat in a group chat 30 minutes before writing me a 4-paragraph apology and typed the words, she will fold. She always does. Both of those people were the same person. Both things were true at the same time. The soup was 5 years ago and the group chat was 30 minutes ago. The second thing was the one Cassidy chose to keep doing. The soup was who Cassidy had been. The group chat was who Cassidy was. My party was 5 days away when Emily decided it was her turn. I was on my couch after work when my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. We had not spoken in almost a year. Her text said, hey, I heard you are doing another party. Cassidy told us she reached out and you did not respond. I just want to say, I think you are being really unfair. We were your friends for 9 years and you are cutting us out over one conversation. One conversation. That is what Emily called it. Not the secret group chat. Not the plan to take hosting from me. Not the 11 messages organizing how to move my own party out from under me. Not the message from Cassidy 30 minutes before her fake apology. One conversation. That is how they had packaged it. I did not respond to Emily. There was nothing to say to Emily that Emily was ready to hear. She had already decided what happened. The only version of the story Emily had was the one Cassidy gave her. And in that version, I was the ungrateful friend who threw away 9 years over a party. The next day was worse. I opened Instagram in the morning and Megan's post was right there at the top of my feed. It was a throwback photo from our Halloween party 6 years ago. All 6 of us were in the photo. The caption under the photo said, missing the old crew. 9 years of memories. Some people forget what matters. Some people. She did not use my name, but she did not need to. I was some people. My phone kept buzzing. 3 of my new group members had seen the post. One of them, a friend who did not know the full story of what happened with my old group, sent me the post directly with a message that said, is everything okay with your old group? This seems pointed. That was the thing I had been afraid of without even knowing I was afraid of it. It was not the post itself that got to me. It was the fact that it was working. The post made me look like the problem. The post made it look like I was the one who left. The post did not mention the group chat. The post did not mention the plan. The post did not mention Cassidy telling Jordan to feel me out, or Cassidy writing, she will fold, she always does. The post was clean. The post was a girl missing her friends, and I was the reason she was sad. That was the narrative. They were not just hurt. They were building something. They were building a version of what happened that did not include their part in it. The version was simple. We were friends for 9 years. She left. She would not even talk to us when we tried. Some people forget what matters. That was the version. And it was a good version because it was easy to believe and it did not require anyone to ask any follow-up questions. Hadley called me during my lunch break. Hadley said, Megan posted that photo on purpose. Jordan liked it. Emily commented a heart. They are doing this together. They are making you look like the bad guy so that if anyone asks what happened, their version is the one people hear. I said, what do I do? Hadley did not hesitate. She said, you do not play their game. You host your party. You love the people who show up. That is the answer. After work, I went home and I sat on my couch and I opened Instagram and I went to Megan's post and I looked at it again. I knew Cassidy was behind it the way she was behind everything. I opened my camera roll. I still had the screenshots. Hadley's screenshots from a year ago. The newer screenshots. The one where Cassidy told Jordan to feel me out. The one where Cassidy said, she will fold. She always does. I had all of it. I opened Instagram and I started a new post. I selected the screenshots. I started typing a caption. I wrote about the group chat. I wrote about the plan. I wrote about what really happened. I read the caption back to myself. It was clear. It was factual. It would have ended the debate. I sat there with my thumb over the share button the same way I had sat with my thumb over the send button when I almost texted Cassidy back. And I thought about what posting it would mean. It would prove my point, but it would also prove that I was willing to go public with it. It would make me the kind of person who escalates, and I did not want to be that person. I had spent a year proving to myself that I did not need to fight for space in a group that did not want to give it to me. I could just make my own space. Posting the screenshots would win the argument, but it would lose the thing I actually cared about, which was being someone who builds instead of someone who tears down. I selected the whole caption. I deleted it. I removed the screenshots from the post. I closed Instagram. I grabbed my keys and I drove to the store. I bought more decorations. I bought candles and fake cobwebs and a set of little pumpkins that I did not need but wanted because they were going to look good on my table in my apartment that was exactly the right size for the people who actually wanted to be there. That was the answer. Hadley was right. That was the only answer that mattered. The night of the party came and everything was ready. The playlist was playing. The candles were lit and the little pumpkins were sitting on the table and my apartment smelled like cinnamon and sugar. Hadley was the first to arrive. She came through the door holding a bottle of something festive with a ribbon tied around the neck and her face just opened up. She said, "Your place looks perfect. This is the right size. This is the right group." I hugged her. I hugged her tight and I meant it. The others came after that, one by one, and the apartment filled up the way a room fills up when the people in it actually want to be there. I stood by my counter at one point just watching everyone talk and laugh, and I realized something that I had not felt in a very long time. I was not performing friendship. I was not managing the energy in the room. I was not watching people's faces to see if they were comfortable or wondering if someone was texting about me in another chat. I was just in it. 40 minutes in there was a knock on the door. I walked over and opened it, and Cassidy was standing in my hallway. She was in a costume. She was holding a dish covered in foil. She looked at me and said, "I brought something. Can I come in?" I did not step aside. I stood in the doorway and I looked at her and I said, "You were not invited, Cassidy." Cassidy said, "I know, but I thought if I showed up, you would see that I am trying." I said, "Trying to do what?" Cassidy said, "To fix this." I stepped into the hallway and I closed the door behind me so my guests could not hear. I kept my voice quiet. I said, "Cassidy, I read what you wrote to the group before you sent me that apology. You told them I would fold. You told them if you got in, you would get them all in. That is not fixing anything. That is managing me." Cassidy's face changed. The softness she had walked up with fell away, and something harder came through underneath. She said, "Hadley showed you that? Hadley is the one who ruined this. She has been feeding you information and turning you against us for a year." I shook my head. I said, "Hadley showed me what you wrote. She did not write it for you. You wrote it. You wrote that my apartment was too small. You wrote the plan to take hosting from me. You wrote that I would fold. Those were your words." Hadley just made sure I saw them. Cassidy's eyes filled with tears. Her voice got thick and shaky. She said, "I was trying to protect your feelings. Your apartment is small. Everyone thought it. I was the one willing to say it." I said, "You were not willing to say it to me. You said it about me. There is a difference." Cassidy stood there in the hallway crying. The dish was still in her hands. She said, "So this is it? 9 years and you are just done?" I paused. I did not want to be cruel. I took a breath and I said, "Cassidy, I am not the one who ended this. You ended it when you decided I was someone to manage instead of someone to respect. I tried to host. You took it from me. I hosted anyway. You tried to take that from me too. I am not folding. I am standing right here in my small apartment with people who want to be here. You should go to your party. Your guests are probably waiting." Cassidy wiped her face with the back of her hand. She looked at me and said, "You are going to regret this." I said, "Maybe, but I do not think so." Cassidy turned and walked down the hallway. I watched her go. I waited until she was around the corner and the hallway was empty and quiet. Then I opened my door and walked back into my party. Hadley looked at me from across the room. She mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded. I was okay. The party went until midnight, and when the last guest left, I cleaned up alone, picking up cups and wiping down the counter and blowing out candles. My phone was quiet. The silence felt different than it did a year ago. A year ago, the silence felt like loss. Now it felt like space. Hadley texted the next morning. She said, "Last night was the best Halloween I have had in years. Same time next year?" I smiled. I typed back, "Same time next year? Same apartment? Same size? It is perfect." I never heard from Cassidy, Megan, Emily, or Jordan again. I did not chase them. The 9-year friendship had been built on my willingness to be the smaller one. The apartment was never the problem. The role was. I stopped playing it. The friendship could not survive without it. That told me everything I needed to know.